Good evening and welcome to Tonight with Tim Modise. In today's show, we unpack the President's surprise state capture inquiry announcement ahead of the ANC's 106th birthday celebration. After several years of attempts to have full-blown investigations into the notorious state capture, President Jacob Zuma has finally relented. The president on Tuesday announced that Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo will head the commission as per the recommendations of the former public protector Thuli Madonsela. The current public protector, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, has waded in, suggesting that the terms of reference of the commission be broadened to include any possible corruption elsewhere in state-owned entities. The significance of the announcement by Zuma is that these investigations are aimed at establishing whether the president is complicit in corruption. There have been several calls and attempts to remove him from office, with some analysts suggesting that his own party, under new President Cyril Ramaphosa, will remove him from his position. To discuss these issues, we are joined by Director of Lenomo Strategic Advisory, Thabang Motsohi, as well as economist and Wits Senior Lecturer Lumkile Mondi. Gentlemen, good evening to you and welcome.
Good evening, Tim.
Now, let me start with you, Lumkile Mondi. Why is this state capture investigation so important? It's got a bit of history to it, and I've alluded to that. If you can just, in summary, tell us how we got to where we are.
South Africa is a constitutional democracy. Within that constitution, there is segregation across various areas, from the executive to parliament, as well as the presidency. More importantly, the judiciary plays a critical role in that respect. We as academics started noticing quite very interesting developments under President Zuma's reign, specifically around state-owned enterprise, which the ANC, in fact, in 2007 in Polokwane, had come out very clearly that the developmental state under the ANC government will ensure that these state-owned enterprises deliver infrastructure and are institutions for economic development. In that process, therefore, the president, as well as those around him, made serious changes in state-owned enterprises around the chairmanship and the boards, working with the Minister of Public Enterprise. Viewers will remember that of concern for us was the instability within the public enterprise function. Barbara Hogan, who was appointed as the first minister, didn't stay very, very long, because when she got instructed to appoint those that were close or in the midst of the president, she refused and was demoted and removed out of the cabinet. So such behavior, where there's rapid changes in institutions that have been functioning, for academics, become very, very attractive, because we are inquiry driven. So when we see these drastic changes, we ask why and what's the interest, where it's leading to. And that has led to us to uncover very interesting developments within the SOEs, driven specifically by inefficiencies which have multiplied under President Zuma. And as we've seen, some institutions have become bankrupt, whether it's South African Airways, it's Denel, it's Eskom, you name them.
Now, in terms of the state capture commission that was announced by the president on Tuesday, this is a consequence of the recommendations of the public protector, right, who had a very short period of time to investigate, and I recall she battled to even get the resources to conduct as quick as possible inquiry that she did. And she did mention in her recommendations that she could not complete her work. If you can take the story further from there, because subsequent to that, the president appealed some of the recommendations from that report.
Well, Tim, that is true. I can see in the Twitter space that there's a lot of discussion about, whether the terms of reference for this inquiry should be expanded or not. But I think this is a misreading of what the public protector actually, stated, and the remedial action, in fact, required. The High Court confirmed that the remedial action must be implemented, and that remedial action is very specific. It's about the investigations that she was making, and specifically the investigations around three, issues: the role of the president, the role of the president's son, and the role of the Guptas. So it is a very, very confined investigation. And I can see quite a few legal minds have, jutted in to really emphasize that it is indeed confined. The president has the right, nonetheless, to appoint other inquiries if he so wishes, and he can develop terms of reference.
I want to go to the timing point of this whole thing that
Yes.
he announced on Tuesday. But the president himself is appealing those recommendations anyway. So that is why I suppose many people were taken by surprise that this happened. Is there any particular, as much as we are speculating here, that you think there might be a particular reason why he decided to announce on Tuesday?
I think on the question of timing, as I've said to you previously, look into the context and see what is happening there. It is the factors that are taking place in the context that actually push certain or influence certain decisions to be taken. The first one really is that Parliament Committee is busy now finalizing processes and procedures for the impeachment. I see one of the tweets from Ndlozi saying that they're targeting end of February so that in March the whole thing is completed. Now, in political horizon, that's a very short space of time. Now, that is a certainty. The certainty is that an impeachment process will happen, and its outcomes are devastating. It's a reality that we must keep up there. It is one of the contributing factors. The second is that there's a new president of the ANC. Now, he's not going to be fired for the next 5 years. Everyone else in that hall that was making the elections, their positions can change in the next 24 months, but he's won't. And the moment that announcement was made, as I stated earlier, that Cyril is the new president, calculations and recalculations started happening in people's minds. From a selfish point of view, am I going to be still in the position that I'm holding? Am I going to maintain the salaries and earnings that I've been having for the past 4 or 5 years? These are serious questions for families, especially for people who don't have qualifications to go and participate, profitably in the economy.
And I'll come back to the point of whether he resigns or not, the president that is, whether he's impeached or not. I just want to stay with the state capture inquiry for a moment, because it's developed other things. Other issues have emerged as within 24 hours or so with the new public protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, the current one. She's no longer new in that position, coming into the picture and saying she actually wants to assist in compiling the terms of reference of this commission, and in the process already proposing the expansion of the scope of this particular commission. Your views?
Yeah, Tim, we shouldn't be surprised by the public protesters' action. I just want to remind our viewers that in May last year, when a report was published around a company called CX, which had collapsed and was supported by the state and over years got absorbed into Barclays Absa, that the public protester recommended the repayment of that bailout, but secondly, also that the central bank itself's mandate should be changed. Basically, that behavior has shown us that she's a person whose judgment from time to time can be questioned, in the sense that in that investigation, which had been done before. Remember, former Minister of Finance Trevor Manuel had done that investigation previously with Judge Davis, coming to the conclusions that we all know that, yes, it happened, but nothing can be done at this point in time. So that behavior and the disposition by the Reserve Bank that basically she's not fit for office, and the case the judgment of which we're waiting for in the next few weeks or so. So this is a person that's being questioned by institutions of society, is being questioned by South Africa at large. And therefore for her to try and gerrymander, undermining again a court process, which, as Mr. Motsohi has said here, that the court was very specific. The court was responding to the findings of the October 2015 public project report, and therefore wanting them, which are very specific, and wanting them to implement it. So for her to disregard that report and the judgment from the court, and now want to gerrymander, raises quite a lot of question, given the CX case, that is there again another questionable behavior by the public protector, trying to smuggle in waters that, you know, she shouldn't be.
Now, there's an argument from other quarters who are sympathetic to President Zuma, given that he's also the subject of this investigation, who are saying that this whole talk, and it started then, even before the previous public protector started with her investigations on state capture, that this is a white monopoly capital-led charge against the president, because the president is a radical type president who wants to transform the economy, and therefore people are throwing mud at him and coming up with all sorts of allegations against the president so that he can be removed from his position. And thus he enjoyed some support when he appealed the recommendations of the public protector. You can go ahead, Lumkile.
Yeah, so the team, firstly, we're shocked as South Africans when the Deputy Minister of Finance said he had been bribed to a magnitude of 600 million rand. This is a very serious person in our society. Not only in our society, but globally, because, you know, we participate in World Bank and International Monetary Fund. So for our Deputy Minister to be bribed is a very serious case. Nothing was done. Themba Maseko made similar claims around the pressure that the Guptas were putting on him when he was leading the information section of the president of our country, GCIS. So nothing was done. So there's really been a continuation of these things, which in many democracies, particularly constitutional democracies, the prosecuting authorities will have immediately stepped in. Tim, there is a litany of evidence coming from the emails, from the Gupta leaks, around the behavior of then Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Zwane, on a loan of 30 million to a dairy farm in the Free State, and that money ending up in the Gupta's wedding. So there's all this that has not been done. So what I was saying, Tim, is that, you know, given what we do know as academics, what we've investigated and the evidence that we found through our research, it shows to us that the president basically has not exercised his constitutional mandate. That by him, by this allegation being made and nothing being done by prosecuting authority, we wonder why is not fulfilling his constitutional responsibility.
And Lumkile Mondi, thank you very much. We will be continuing with the discussions in a moment. There are other processes underway which are aimed at trying to remove President Zuma from his position as head of the country. The impeachment procedures that are being discussed in Parliament at the moment, and within ANC circles themselves, the expectation that at some point the NEC will recall the president or ask him to resign from his position. My question to my guests is, why should President Zuma step down as head of the country? We'll continue with the discussion in a moment. Tonight we are discussing the announcement by President Zuma on the 9th of this month of January, where he said that the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture should go ahead, and named the Deputy Chief Justice as the head of that commission. And this is a matter that he, the President, had been appealing before the court, so he took a lot of people by surprise. But at the same time, the power within the ANC has shifted from him as president of the ANC to newly elected Cyril Ramaphosa. And the expectation is that he may be asked to step down by the ANC on one hand. On the other hand, a court judgment last year said the parliament should institute procedures to impeach the president following the finding by the Constitutional Court that he had broken oath of office. So there are many people who wonder sometimes that why is President Zuma at the center of so many controversies, and that somewhat it is political shenanigans that demands are made that he should step down. For instance, one of the typical arguments is that the only people who stand to benefit from him being forced out of office are the opposition parties. And for that reason, he needs to be defended by his own organization and people who voted for the ANC to be government. And it does wash with a lot of people, people who believe that.
Tim, I think we should that statement actually is laughable.
It is.
It is laughable in many ways. It has no intellectual basis at all. And I think, one of the things that we should accept and understand is that this is I always say in strategy and leadership, you need someone with what you call contextual intelligence to lead a country, to lead a complex organization. A country is a very complex organization. You need someone with that type of intelligence who is able to scan and understand what is going on around. I must say very openly, this is the first president that I've ever seen anywhere with nil contextual intelligence. Otherwise, how then do you explain reckless actions like, for instance, the firing of Nene, the firing of Gordon, and many other things that have happened? Those things should not happen if the leadership has that sensitivity to understand what is happening in the market, in the constituencies that they actually serve as a political party. So actually, to be honest, President Zuma is the worst burden that the African National Congress has ever had for a long, long time, at least post-apartheid. The worst burden. And I think there is a general consensus that, perhaps if you remove him, things will be different. They may not, because remember, he behaved in this fashion within the context of the ANC that was watching, that in fact, one might say that supported him in doing all of these things. We don't forget about the alternative report on Nkandla that was done by a ministerial committee, which was actually intellectual nonsense in so many ways. But adults were in there in parliament supporting this finding. It is incredible.
Are you suggesting, therefore, that from your point of view, he should resign or should be forced out of office?
Let me put it this way, Tim. There are two options for President Zuma now. It is resignation on his own accord or impeachment. Now, when these two things happen, it will depend on how fast the impeachment process is approaching.
I will come back to your arguments.
So there's only two
I would say, how does he go about deciding? Because it does not seem like he'll decide either way on that matter. But here's an argument that's been made,
yes,
right? And we should not dismiss it. There are people who are of the view that President Zuma is the most radical president South Africa has ever had, acting in the best interests of specifically the black community, because he wants to fast-track economic transformation. And for that reason, and he himself has made the point anyway, for that reason, there are many, many forces out there, not only in South Africa, but internationally, that want him out of office. So, Lumkile, I want to hear your views on that, because this is an economic question, right?
Let's look at the data.
Yeah.
Yes.
Under his stewardship,
yes,
poverty has increased from 51 to 54%. We have 17 million children who go to bed in South Africa without food. Unemployment is stubbornly at 27.6%. Inequality has widened tremendously under his stewardship. Institutions owned by government, which were functioning, were making a difference in people's life, all have collapsed, except a few. I've mentioned earlier, the ESCOMs of this world, the SAs of this world, is that radical economic transformation. Maybe in his book, as well as his cronies' books, it could be that's a radical economic transformation. But I think for South Africans, with the economy having performed so poorly, this year, the past year, Tim, we just performed at 1%. And expect this year, if Zuma is impeached or resigns, we may improve to about 1.8%. If it doesn't happen for some reasons, we're going to continue postponing our growth because commodity prices are very high, and therefore South Africa should be doing very, very well. So this is the reality of his performances. So the scorecard, as shown by data from Stats SA, doesn't support the argument for radical economic transformation. However, what it does support is that those around him have become multimillionaires. We estimate that over 100 billion rand has left this country, coming from state-owned entities through dark means. And these are those that we hope that people come forward when the terms of reference are out and Judge Zondo is now open for business. So, Tim, I wonder, who are those people who believe that life has improved?
I can tell you, I mean, there's going to be another argument, right, following the announcement of the commission earlier this week. There are people who are going to say the same, more likely to say, why do you want the president to step down? He's just announced that the commission of inquiry into state capture should start its work, and this may continue for several years. And in any event, we are a constitutional democracy. Allow the man to finish his term. We will be having elections in 2019. So what's the rush all about? Why rush him out of office?
Tim, that's a very interesting perspective, but let's look at it this way. As I said, there's a new chief in town, as they say, in the ANC, and that's Cyril. If you read his mind and try to calculate what are the possibilities that he may follow, he's got one certainty. It's less than 2 years to the next elections. Under normal circumstance, you need 2 full years to really work yourself into a ready position to fight those elections confidently. He doesn't have that. Second thing is that he definitely would not want to fight those elections with a party that is divided. He wants a united ANC behind him. And the reason is very simple. The context has changed. The DA is a powerful force to reckon. The EF is also a powerful rising force to reckon. So if he goes for those elections with a divided party, he may perform well, but he'll only be just able perhaps to be a dominant force in a coalition. And in that situation, he'll be what you would normally call a leashed president. And when you are leashed, you don't have the freedom to do what you could have done.
The point you're making is what? Is that he's going to ask President Zuma to step down?
The point that I'm making is a simple. And my advice to him would be a very simple one. Make the context clear to all those that are saying he mustn't go. Let's understand the context. The context is simple. And right at the apex of that context, my belief is this. In the past 10, 15 days, everybody has been united in the ANC and those that support the ANC around one thing. They want a united ANC. If that is the case, if you're so strong behind that call, why do you want to make a reckless decision that then can result in a split of a party? The next thing that he has to do is to stand up and say to his faction or group that supports him, I think it is in the interest of the party that I should resign, so that Cyril can have a solid party behind him. That is in the case of President Zuma. You think he will consider? I think he should.
But do you think, very briefly, Lumkile, very briefly, because Thabang Motsohi here believes that President Zuma is going to step down and may not even give the State of the Nation address. I've spoken to him about this before. Very briefly from your side, what do you think is likely to happen over the next few months or few weeks?
I think if I were him and I had his ear, I'll tell him to resign. He's going to be very embarrassed by an impeachment. I mean, we saw how Dilma Rousseff in Brazil was kicked out of that position. So when you resign on your terms, team. You say, you know what, I've done very, very well, but I think there's Thabang Motsohi who can do far better. So thank you so much for having me, but Thabang here, take it over. So, and that's very respectable. But, you know, the sooner he does it, the better. Not only for him, but I think, as I've argued earlier, for the country, because the country needs a positive, and the ANC, given that it was clobbered in the local government election.
Well, I have to interrupt you there, but it looks like you agree that he's going to go anyway.
He's going to go anyway,
All right, Lumkile Mondi, thank you very much, and Thabang Motsohi, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
I know that there are a lot of people who do not necessarily agree with this view that President Zuma will be stepping down anytime soon, but the advice from my guest is that if it does not, the impeachment process starts anyway in March, and that is where the major decision will be taken for him. Thank you very much for having been with us on the show tonight, and good night to you.